The new cav commanders Huo Qubing and Justinian were released into Rise of Kingdoms today, so today I'll be telling you the best cav modable up to 6 marches. I'll give you 1 march, 2 marches, 3 marches, 4 marches, 5 marches, and even 6 marches. I'll also tell you along the way where I recommend each type of player to stop, whether it be an extreme free-to-play cav main, whether you are just someone who looks to get the best cav marches for a mixed modable between archers and infantry, or if you're just a cav main in general who isn't extremely diehard for cavs, but they prefer to run more cav marches, I'll be telling you the best amount of pairs to use along the way. So if you are interested in all this, maybe you want to know which cav marches you should be running, or which marches you should work towards, you definitely need to check out the rest of the video. Let's start off with running 1 cav march, and before I would say without a doubt it'd be a Nevsky and Joan, but now I have a few doubts, and the personal recommendation for me is running a Huo Qubing and a Joan. Some people would say I'm absolutely ludicrous. Huo Qubing is not even close to Nevsky's strength. He's horrible compared to Nevsky, but personally, what I've seen from reports, what I've seen in the ROK Battle Simulator, Huo Qubing is around 2,000 to 3,000 sev wounds better than Nevsky. So I can't just say, yeah, Nevsky's got a defense reduction, you should go and get him. I would say for most players who don't have a Nevsky and you just want to run 1 cav march, Huo Qubing is going to be a slightly better option for you, and there's no point going for a commander who is only going to be slightly worse. This by no means means that Nevsky is bad. He's still an amazing commander by like every single metric, but he is obviously slightly worse than Huo Qubing, and I think that is obviously intended because of power creep. Then another option is running Huo Qubing with Nevsky, because like I said, Nevsky is still an amazing commander, and Huo Qubing with Nevsky is tanky, Nevsky's got skill damage, Nevsky's got active skill damage that is fairly nice. Huo Qubing, not so tanky, but crazy fast rage cycle, crazy fast skill damage. So what does this mean? Well, Huo Qubing with Nevsky, ooh, it's a nice march, because if you get hit with this, you're not going to take that much damage, and even if you do, you've dealt so much damage to your opponents, the one person that you decided to target, that you're pretty much going to get a ridiculously high amount of kills in that 1 march, that sometimes it even evens out a trade if you get swarmed. So I really do like the Huo Qubing with the Nevsky, and I think that it can work extremely well for just 1 march. Another option is still just running Nevsky and Joan. I don't think we need to talk about this much. It is obviously a meta march, and you can expect it to perform very well still. Now, if you're looking to run 2 cav marches, which is where I'd recommend most free-to-play, low spenders, even most players in general who aren't looking to be a cav main stop, I recommend 2 marches as the best amount. And then you go and diversify, get some infantry, get some archers in there. 2 cav marches is really good, and here's what I'd recommend. Huo Qubing at this point, I'd say has to go with your Joan, because Nevsky has a better pair, since Huo Qubing with Joan can pretty much carry itself. And I'd recommend Nevsky with William. I know that might sound a little bit weird. William is a very old commander, but William is an amazing cav commander. He is bringing an amazing debuff to your opponent, and it's a very unique debuff that no one has. What happens is, attack troops' extra skill damage buffs cannot take effect. This means anyone who has increased skill damage effects, this doesn't work if a William is hitting him. If a William's active skill hits him for the next 3 seconds, nah, it's not going to work. And you know why this is really good? Here's how many commanders in the cav section have some form of a skill damage buff. Zhang Yu, Nevsky, and Huo Qubing. 3 extremely powerful meta cav commanders. Now imagine you put that across every single troop type. Commanders like YSG, commanders like Nebu, commanders like Boudica. All these commanders have some form of a skill damage boost. A lot of infantry have skill damage boost, for example, Guan. So, well, you're running a commander who's going to pretty much disable that. It is really good, and that's why I'd recommend him for a 2 march ball. Plus, he's got AoE, plus he does give your troops a little bit of a buff. So he is an overall extremely nice commander, and I think that he is a great way to A, buff other troop types, especially if you are working on a wider ball and not just calves, and B, he's going to get you a fair amount of kills with his AoE. Speaking of AoE, another option if you don't really care about William's effects and buffs and stuff, you can just run XY, because he is a great commander with Nevsky. It's been a very old combination that still works. It was the only combination that could actually beat ZHUGE on release for the whole cav modables. So XY with Nevsky is still extremely good. XY is obviously a very glass cannon commander. Put that with Nevsky, you can expect to have a great march. And since XY has a nice raid reduction cost, you'll be shooting that XY active skill like it's going out of fashion, which is the best part about running an XY Nevsky. This is why I'd say it is still a very workable commander at 2 marches. Obviously, XY is not better than Huo Qubing, but he's still going to hold enough effectiveness where I would say he is still a good commander. That is why I recommend him within the 2 marches. If you don't want to run any of those commanders, or maybe you don't have access to them, Minamoto with Nevsky is just always going to be good. It's always going to be a decent low spender pairing, as Minamoto, easy to access, he only costs around $300 US. That might sound like a lot, but that's a lot cheaper than most legendaries. And also, you can double relic him in the museum, which is extremely nice. So Nevsky with Minamoto is the most suboptimal pairing. However, it is still a very good option for 2 cav marches. Now, if you want to run 3 cav marches, which is where I recommend most free-to-play cav mains stop, and you go and get other commanders like CPO and Boudica, here's what I'd recommend. First of all, you're going to stick with the Hao Qubing and the Joan. It is going to be one of the best commander combos. I'm not going to be changing that. Then, you're going to have to make a choice. You either continue running a Nevsky with William, which is perfectly fine. This commander pairing I will keep for the rest of the game if you choose to run it. Or if you have an XY with your Nevsky, at this point you have to split them and you split the XY off your Nevsky. You run Nevsky with a Minamoto, or you run Nevsky with pretty much any other Cav commander you own. This could be a Nevsky with the William, which is what I personally recommend. Nevsky with a Saladin, Nevsky with even an Attila in some situations. But at this point, XY's got to go somewhere else. And the place I recommend XY for is definitely got to be with Shonagupta. Shonagupta at 3 Cav marches is pretty much essential. And this is because his debuffs are just insane. He's got a defense and health reduction on a passive skill slot, which means it will stack with any other health reductions, any other defense reductions that you are bringing. So he is one of the best Cav commanders for debuffs in the whole entire game. He is similar to a Sargon and similar to a Tamiris, except he's cavalry and he's fast and he's got extremely high damage. So Shonagupta overall is an amazing pairing with XY. I've said it before, they are a tried and true combo. Everyone used them at some point in the game. So XY with Shonagupta is amazing. One thing to note with Shonagupta, you can choose 2 ways to use him. I personally would use him as a secondary to XY to get the faster rage. Some people say you use him as the primary to get the all damage bonus on XY's AoE, and that is certainly an option. You could also consider running a Shonagupta primary to a William secondary. Keep in mind though, this is extremely squishy, and if it does get hit, you're going to see it completely melt in like 2 seconds. So I'd tell you to keep that in mind if you do run a Shonagupta with the William and then run the XY with the Nevsky. Now, the other option you could do if you want to keep an XY with a Nevsky, especially if you're a whale and you don't really want to get William, is to get an Attila and a Takeda. And this is really whale oriented because whales already deal higher white numbers. And imagine you could just amplify that and send it to the moon. And that's what Attila and Takeda does. Especially if you're maxing Crystal Tech in KVKs, or you are maxing the amount of equipment that you're using on the Attila Takeda, it's going to be your best performing march because whenever anyone hits it, literally anybody hits this march, you're going to completely decimate them because Attila with Takeda is just anti-swarm, white damage, it's just crazy how much white damage they do and the amount of anti-swarm they have. So that's why I'd recommend them only if you're a whale. If you're a free-to-play lower spender, you're not going to see as much power from the Attila Takeda because A, your equipment is probably lower than most whales, and B, you are not maxing your Crystal Tech, so you are missing out on a lot of those all damage increases which Attila and Takeda benefit from greatly compared to other commanders. Also, keep in mind, if you do run Attila Takeda, it is a all damage march, so eventually it's going to be replaced, but if you're a whale, you probably don't care too much about that, and they will still bring you a lot of value currently, even in this meta, over 3 years since they were released. Now, what if you want to run 4 marches, and if you don't have an Attila and Takeda, which I don't recommend for free to play still, even at 4 marches, here's what I would do. First of all, I'd bring in a Justinian, which you may think is a little bit weird. He is a rally commander after all. Well, he is the newest rally commander, and guess what? Henry is very similar to Justinian in most ways, where he's still an open field commander and can be used in the open field. So, Justinian, really, really nice on the last skill especially, where he can deal a nice instant 400 damage by just hitting the opponent. It's a 10% chance, and plus, if you have up to 5 marches, that's where he deals the 400 damage, which is why I waited to bring him in a bit later. He does benefit from you surrounding your opponent, and he can't really do that unless you have multiple marches. Plus, he is high on attack and a lot of stats that aren't as good compared to other commanders. Though he has nice defense, he has pretty decent all damage outside of Alliance territory, and very, very good march speed outside of Alliance territory. Plus, keep in mind his active skill damage is pretty much on par with Nevsky and a lot of the current meta commanders. Also though, one thing that's unfortunate, a lot of his active skill kit is locked behind him being a rally commander. As such, it is another reason why he is lower on my list than he would have been if some of his kit was not locked behind being a rally commander. So overall, Justinian is still really, really good in the open field, especially if you're running 4 marches. And if you want to pair him with someone, there are a few options, but the main pair I recommend is with Honda or Bertrand or Minamoto. I personally would run a Bertrand because I think he's similar to Justinian in the way that he's extremely tanky. However, Bertrand is a little bit different in the way that his damage is dealt over time and he's reducing the rage of his opponents. He is similar to Frederick where he can deal up to 2100 damage factor, however it is over 3 seconds. Plus, Bertrand is an extremely tanky commander and he's got a nice amount of march speed, plus if he's outside of Alliance territory, he gets the nice all damage reduction. I also really like how he's getting a lot of defense on his 4th skill, but keep in mind, overall his stats are not that crazy. They're not like game breaking. I'm like, damn, Bertrand is crazy good. He's not the meta rally either compared to a Nevsky with a Justinian, though they still work very well. That is why I'd recommend them for the open field if you are running 4 marches. The other option is running a Honda with a Justinian. This is because Honda is a really interesting commander in the way that he works very well with commanders like Justinian, who are on their own not extremely powerful, but given a good enough secondary that can make him a lot more tanky, which definitely works for Justinian, and give him a lot more march speed and a lot of other buffs, you got Honda for that. Honda is giving you the AoE that Justinian doesn't have. He's also bringing Justinian a lot of attack, a lot of march speed, and he's also bringing even more attack. Then he's also bringing a nice troop capacity bonus, and if you expertise Honda, you're pretty much invincible for 57 turns. So I really, really like having Honda with Justinian as another option. For you players who don't have Honda, you can consider Mehmed, but at that point, you shouldn't run 4 cav marches. Just try and make your 3 as best as you can. Then obviously, if you don't have any of those commanders or you don't think they're good for your account, you can just run Minamoto. He's going to work. Keep in mind, it's going to be a little bit squishy running him with a Justinian. Even though Justinian is a fairly anti-swarm rally in some situations, he's not that anti-swarm on the field. However, he does work quite well, even with a commander who's a bit glass cannon like Minamoto. So that's why I'd say a double relic Mina can still work fairly decently with a Justinian as a 4th march. So that means the personal 4-march recommendation from me for cavalry mains is Hao Qubing with Joan of Arc. So that is going to be your best combination. It's going to trade the best. Then you're going to run a Nevsky with a William. This is going to give you a lot of support. And also you're going to run an XY with a Shonagupta. This is once again going to bring you a lot of support. And then you run Justinian with either Honda, Bertrand, or Minamoto. I prefer Honda out of all of those commanders. So now 5 marches is really simple because if you have Attila and Takeda, you bring the Attila and Takeda in. And if you don't have Attila and Takeda, you bring the Attila and Takeda in. Because at this point, you got to get them. Whether you're a free-to-play, whether you're a literal mega whale, you have to have Attila and Takeda. And here's the 5-march notable. Attila, Takeda, Justinian with Honda or Bertrand. I'd recommend using the XY with Shonagupta still, Nevsky with William, and then Hao Qubing with Joan. That is going to be your best 5-march notable. Now, what if you want to run 6 marches? And the issue with 6 marches is you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here. Really, all you have left to choose from are Cao, Khan, Saladin, Mina, and maybe Bertrand if you have a Honda with your Justinian. Jan Ziska and also Jadwiga are really just garrison related and they do not perform at all in the open field, so I highly recommend steering yourself away from those. So if you want to run 6 marches, you've really only got one option, in my opinion, to make a very powerful commander, and that is to put Justinian with a Honda. At this point, he has to be with a Honda, or at least with a Mehmed. And here's what I do for that 6th march, which I don't recommend doing for most players, but here's what I have to do. You'd have to run a Bertrand with a Minamoto. Bertrand is at least somewhat tanky, he's got nice single target damage, and Minamoto deals extremely high single target damage, and his relic, if you double relic him in the museum, is going to at least bring that combination a lot of power that it wouldn't have had if Minamoto didn't have the relic. So at least Minamoto does have a double relic, so you can easily run him within any of your other marches, but if you aren't running him, and you want to run him with a Bertrand as your 6th cav march, and you have the equipment, and you're willing to go with the risk of it being a fairly bad march, Minamoto with Bertrand is going to barely work. So if you want to use it for 6 marches, that is an option. Another option, you could run a Minamoto with a Saladin, or a Saladin with a Bertrand as well. Those are options. We know Saladin is a lot more tanky than Minamoto, so that means he's going to take a lot less damage, but he's dealing a lot less damage as well. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. Plus, you've already got 2 commanders in your notable who have march speed reductions. William and also Hao Qubing both have a march speed reduction. So his march reduction is fairly useless at this point. Does have a nice healing effect reduction, but it really doesn't change much. Healing is fairly useless overall. So really for 6 marches, you've got the Saladin with the Bertrand or the Minamoto with the Bertrand. And actually, one last option is also running a Khan with a Bertrand. Very weird combination here. But Genghis Khan with his relic is okay. Like, he's usable, barely. And he's going to work okay with Bertrand, since, like we said, Bertrand is a fairly tanky commander. And Bertrand's rage reduction is fairly nice. I don't think there is any cav commanders off the top of my head that do have a rage reduction in their skills. So, not too bad to bring that to your kit. Though it is a very small amount. It's like 30 per turn or 20 per turn for 3 turns. 60 rage reduction. It's not that crazy. So, overall, not 100% needed, the rage reduction, but it is somewhat nice to bring to a kit that is going to miss a few debuffs and stuff that you won't have if you are going for a pure cav notable, especially what you'll be doing at 6 marches. So now here is the final best 6 march notable in my opinion. If you're running 1 march, you run the Hao Qubing with the Joan. If you're running 2, you run Nevsky with the William. If you're running 3 marches, you run XY with Chandragupta. That's going to be your best bet. If you're running 4 marches, you run Justinian with Honda because you need him to be with Honda at this point. If you're running 5 marches, you run the Attila and Takeda. And then if you're running your 6 marches, you run Minamoto with Bertrand, in my opinion. Now, you may be wondering, where did all of my commanders just go? Well, with the magic of editing, you didn't know I switched to my Siege Restart account where I will be doing a live stream tomorrow at around 6 to 8 UTC. I will have it linked in the description and the pinned comment. And this is because it's a big day for this account. I will be jumping to the final kingdom, 3272, an amazing kingdom that hopefully we will become the kings of. And you know why I'm very excited for this? Well, it's because this is a Siege-only account. I will be only using Siege units in KVK, and it's going to be one heck of a time watching how they perform, and if they're even usable. This is a very, very expensive and interesting experiment, so If you want to come by to my live stream, it is much appreciated. It will be around 6 to 8 UTC, as that is when I get off school, and it will be linked in the pinned comment and in the description, as I mentioned. Now, I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.